The European Union's latest sanctions on Iran mark a crucial escalation in global geopolitics. For the first time, the EU has expanded its sanctions framework to encompass not only Iran's ballistic missile program, but its crucial role in supplying Russia with these weapons during the ongoing war in Ukraine. The EU has targeted 7 individuals and 7 entities directly linked to these missile transfers. But this isn't just a question of weapons. It's a turning point in the East-West divide that could reshape the global order. This is not merely about nuclear proliferation, but a broader struggle over Iran's regional ambitions, its human rights record, and its deepening alliance with Russia. The EU's actions reflect growing concerns over Iran's influence in the Middle East, where it has been accused of destabilizing activities and supporting militant groups. These sanctions represent a pivotal moment in global geopolitics, one with far-reaching implications for the Middle East, Europe, and the global balance of power. The international community is watching closely, as the outcome of this standoff could reshape alliances and power dynamics for years to come. The decision to impose these sanctions did not come easily for the EU. European leaders had to weigh the potential economic repercussions and the risk of further escalating tensions with Iran. European nations have long sought to engage with Iran diplomatically, viewing it as a potential partner in areas such as trade and energy. The hope was that through dialogue and cooperation, Iran could be integrated into the international community as a responsible actor. However, Iran's continued defiance on the nuclear issue, its crackdown on domestic dissent, and its military support for Russia's war in Ukraine have hardened European resolve. The EU now sees Iran not just as a regional threat, but as a key player in a broader geopolitical struggle. The EU's latest actions signal a recognition that dialogue alone is insufficient to alter Iran's behavior. Sanctions are seen as a necessary tool to pressure the Iranian regime into compliance with international norms and agreements. These sanctions are not just symbolic gestures. They are designed to have a tangible impact on Iran's economy and its ability to fund its controversial activities. They target key sectors of the Iranian economy, including its energy and financial sectors, aiming to inflict real pain on the regime and compel it to change course. The sanctions are expected to significantly reduce Iran's oil revenues, which are a major source of funding for its government and military. The measures also target individuals and entities involved in Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for terrorist groups. By cutting off financial resources and restricting access to technology, the EU hopes to curb Iran's ability to develop and deploy these weapons. The EU is sending an unequivocal message. Iran's actions have consequences, and the international community will not stand idly by. This stance is intended to demonstrate solidarity with other nations affected by Iran's policies and to uphold the principles of international law. The EU's move must be understood against the backdrop of a rapidly shifting geopolitical landscape. The balance of power is in flux, and traditional alliances are being tested as new threats and opportunities emerge. The war in Ukraine has shattered old certainties and exposed the fault lines in the international order. The conflict has highlighted the need for a united response to aggression and has underscored the importance of maintaining a rules-based international system. Russia's aggression has galvanized Western powers, leading to an unprecedented level of unity and resolve. This newfound solidarity is being tested as the West confronts multiple challenges, including the rise of authoritarianism and the erosion of democratic norms. At the same time, it has pushed Moscow closer to Tehran, as both countries seek to weather the storm of Western sanctions and challenge the established global order. This alliance poses a significant challenge to the West, as it combines the military and economic resources of two major powers with a shared interest in undermining Western influence. As the situation continues to evolve, the international community must navigate a complex web of alliances and rivalries. The EU's sanctions on Iran are just one piece of a larger puzzle, as nations grapple with the shifting dynamics of global power and the need to uphold international norms and security. The coming months will be critical in determining the future of this standoff. Diplomatic efforts will continue, but the effectiveness of sanctions and the resolve of the international community will play a crucial role in shaping the outcome. The world watches as this new front in global geopolitics unfolds, with the hope that a peaceful and just resolution can be achieved. At the core of the sanctions are the 7 individuals and 7 entities accused of facilitating the development and transfer of ballistic missiles and UAV unmanned aerial vehicles to Russia. These missile systems have been instrumental in Russia's war in Ukraine, with devastating impacts on Ukrainian civilians and infrastructure. Among those sanctioned are Saha Airlines, Mahan Air, and Iran Air, three key airlines that have been instrumental in transporting missile components and UAVs to Russia. Two procurement firms that specialize in acquiring and transferring military-grade components for Iran's missile and drone programs. High-ranking officials, such as Sayed Hamzeh Galandari, Iran's deputy defense minister, and prominent members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, including key figures from the Qatam Al-Anbiya Central Headquarters and the IRGC Aerospace Force Space Division. Senior managers from Iran's defense industries, including the Iran Aircraft Manufacturing Industries, HESA, and the Aerospace Industries Organization, AIO, who are central to Iran's missile production. All of these individuals and entities now face an asset freeze, travel ban, and restrictions on any economic support from EU entities. This represents a new phase in sanctions, one that specifically targets not just Iran's military, but its economic infrastructure that supports missile production. These measures are designed to hold those responsible for human rights abuses accountable for their actions. The EU hopes that by targeting these key figures, it will deter future violations and encourage a shift towards more respectful and lawful governance. Beyond individual sanctions, the EU is targeting the heart of the Iranian economy. This comprehensive approach aims to weaken the financial foundations that support the current regime. Key sectors, including energy, finance, and shipping, are facing significant restrictions. These industries are crucial to Iran's economic stability and growth, and the sanctions are designed to disrupt their operations severely. These sanctions aim to cripple Iran's ability to generate revenue and conduct business on the international stage. By cutting off these vital economic lifelines, the EU hopes to force Iran to reconsider its policies and actions. European companies are now prohibited from engaging in transactions with blacklisted Iranian entities, effectively cutting off Iran from vital sources of income and investment. This move is expected to have a profound impact on Iran's economic landscape, as European investments and partnerships have been significant contributors to its economy. The EU's decision to target Iran's financial sector is particularly significant. Financial institutions play a pivotal role in facilitating international trade and investment, and their inclusion in the sanctions list underscores the EU's commitment to applying maximum pressure. By imposing sanctions on major Iranian banks, the EU is making it extremely difficult for Iran to access the global financial system. This isolation from international banking networks will hinder Iran's ability to conduct transactions, secure loans, and manage its financial resources effectively. This will have a ripple effect throughout the Iranian economy, making it harder for businesses to secure financing, import essential goods, and engage in international trade. The resulting economic strain is expected to exacerbate existing challenges and create new obstacles for Iranian enterprises. The sanctions also target Iran's energy sector, which is the lifeblood of its economy. The energy sector is not only a major source of revenue, but also a critical component of Iran's geopolitical influence. The EU has imposed an embargo on Iranian oil imports, dealing a major blow to Iran's export earnings. This embargo is intended to reduce Iran's ability to fund its activities and projects, both domestically and internationally. While Iran may seek to circumvent these sanctions by selling its oil to other buyers, such as China, it is likely to do so at a discounted price, further squeezing its finances. This discounting strategy, while providing some revenue, will not fully compensate for the loss of access to the European market, which has been a significant source of income for Iran. The EU's decision to impose these sanctions is driven by a complex set of strategic calculations. These calculations are not just about immediate political gains, but are deeply rooted in long-term strategic interests and the broader geopolitical landscape. At their core, the sanctions are designed to exert maximum pressure on the Iranian regime, forcing it to make concessions on multiple fronts. This pressure is multifaceted, targeting economic, political, and military aspects of Iran's power structure. The EU hopes to compel Iran to return to compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal, which was a landmark agreement aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. The deal represented a significant diplomatic achievement, and its preservation is seen as crucial for regional stability, curb its ballistic missile program, which has been a point of contention not just for the EU, but for the international community at large. Iran's missile capabilities are viewed as a direct threat to its neighbors and beyond, and end its destabilizing activities in the region. Iran's involvement in various Middle Eastern conflicts has exacerbated tensions and contributed to a cycle of violence and instability that the EU is keen to break. Beyond pressuring Iran directly, the EU is also seeking to isolate Russia on the world stage. This isolation is part of a broader strategy to weaken alliances that are seen as detrimental to global peace and security. By imposing sanctions on Iran, the EU aims to weaken one of Russia's key allies and disrupt their growing military and economic cooperation. This cooperation has been a source of concern for the EU, as it strengthens both nations' positions against Western interests. The EU recognizes that Russia's war in Ukraine poses a direct threat to European security, and it is determined to use all tools at its disposal to counter that threat. The conflict in Ukraine is not just a regional issue, but a significant challenge to the security architecture of Europe, and it is determined to use all tools at its disposal to counter that threat. This includes economic sanctions, diplomatic efforts, and military preparedness to ensure that European borders and interests are protected. The EU's actions are also part of a broader strategy to uphold the rules-based international order. This order, built on principles of international law and mutual respect, is seen as essential for global stability and prosperity. The EU is sending a clear message that violations of international law, whether in Ukraine or elsewhere, will not be tolerated. Upholding these laws is crucial for maintaining peace and preventing the escalation of conflicts. By demonstrating its willingness to impose costs on those who flout international norms, the EU is seeking to deter future aggression and maintain a stable and predictable global order. This deterrence is not just about punishment, but about creating a framework where international cooperation can thrive. The EU is not under any illusions that these sanctions will produce immediate results. The nature of international diplomacy and conflict resolution is such that changes often take years, if not decades, to materialize. Changing the behavior of a regime like Iran's is a long-term endeavor. It requires sustained effort, patience, and a willingness to engage in continuous dialogue and negotiation. However, the EU believes that by maintaining economic pressure and diplomatic isolation, it can eventually create the conditions for a more constructive relationship with Iran. This belief is rooted in the idea that persistent and consistent pressure can lead to meaningful change over time, fostering a more stable and cooperative international environment. The EU's sanctions are already having a profound impact on the Iranian economy. The rial, Iran's currency, has plummeted in value, fueling inflation and eroding the purchasing power of ordinary Iranians. Basic goods and services are becoming increasingly unaffordable, leading to widespread hardship and discontent. The sanctions have exacerbated existing economic problems in Iran, which was already grappling with high unemployment, corruption, and mismanagement. The Iranian government's response to the sanctions has been widely criticized as ineffective and out of touch with the plight of ordinary citizens. The sanctions have also had a chilling effect on foreign investment in Iran. International companies, wary of running afoul of US and EU sanctions, are reluctant to do business with Iran. This has deprived Iran of much-needed foreign capital and expertise, further hindering its economic development. The economic pain inflicted by the sanctions is taking a toll on the Iranian people. Shortages of essential goods, rising prices, and dwindling job opportunities are fueling frustration and anger. While the Iranian government blames the West for its economic woes, many Iranians are increasingly questioning the regime's competence and legitimacy. As we look forward, these sanctions may push Iran to double down on its alliances with Russia and China, further complicating the global geopolitical landscape. Could this lead to a more entrenched global East-West divide, where sanctions become less effective as nations create alternative trading and military alliances? Will Europe's measures succeed in curbing Iran's missile capabilities, or will they only fuel Tehran's pivot eastward? The geopolitical chessboard is shifting, and with it, the rules of engagement. What's clear is that the EU's sanctions on Iran will not just impact the war in Ukraine, but also reshape global power dynamics in the years to come. If you found today's breakdown insightful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth analyses of global geopolitical events. Let us know in the comments, how do you think these sanctions will reshape the future of global alliances?